Hi and welcome to Front and Square, your weekly expose into the inner sanctum of the AFL. I'm joined by Mark Stevens and our guest today is Scott Clayton, the chief recruiter of the Gold Coast Football Club, about to embark upon their first game in the AFL.
Okay, Scotty, what's the feeling going into finally you get to see all the kids you've collected run out on the park Saturday night?
Yeah, I must admit, a little nervous. All of a sudden, sort of 2 years of work and now we commence getting judged weekly, as we know in footy, which can be different. I mean, it's obviously super exciting. The amount of work that's gone into to the commencement on Saturday is just really exciting, but a little nervous.
You picked up so many first round draft picks and you've talked them up for so long, but what's a realistic attitude? I mean, you probably do well to miss the wooden spoon, wouldn't you? Or?
Yeah, look, we hope we surprise ourselves. We just know that we've put together a list model that's long-term sustainable. We can't be tracking down in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time.
When can we judge you then, Scotty, on what you've set up? Is it fair to wait 5 years, do you think, before we can really judge on the inaugural list?
Oh, I think that's probably fair enough. It might be 3, it might be 5. It's somewhere there. It's not 3 weeks. It won't be round 1. It won't be Saturday night. But it's somewhere down the track.
Take us through the famous window of opportunity, that little window there where you supposedly signed up people. How many agreements did you have in place there before the season even started?
Oh, look, as I've said a number of times, we just set out to have enough irons in the fire come the end of the year that we'd get our 8 or 10 uncontracteds. As it turned out, that was the number we got. We certainly respected the comp enough to, I can say, we're obviously allowed to talk to people prior to the commencement of the year. We did. We didn't go to any of them during the course of the year, and we respected the fact that they were playing with other teams, and we were fortunate that those players agreed to join us come the end of the season.
So you sat through most of the year pretty confident that Gary Ablett would be on board?
Well, I mean, it's like anything. Some days you are, some days you aren't. You look at the rosy side and you think, oh, what if he doesn't? I mean, but we were sort of strong enough just to put it to the side. And I mean, while that was happening, and that was clearly the focus across a lot of the comp, because it's the most, I don't know, romantic part of it, the uncontracteds. But while that was happening, we were doing a mountain of work on 17 and 18-year-olds, where our focus should have been at that stage. So we're watching it, a lot of vision and footy across the whole country.
So where were you when you got the call saying that Gary Ablett had committed?
I was home. I think Liam Pickering was driving back from Geelong. I know where he was, and I can't remember where I was. He was in the car, and it was looking pretty positive. So then we managed to put that to bed pretty quickly.
Gaz's body, how is it? He's only played half one practice match, but are the powers that be pretty confident that he's going to get through a year?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any doubt that he'll play on Saturday night, and asking our guys how he's been. I think he's got a lot of work in the last 3 weeks, from what I can hear. Haven't seen it firsthand, but I think the most exciting thing that our coaches and have said to me that he's got a spring in his step and he's really confident in where he's at. So he's been around long enough to know just what sort of output he can have with that preparation. But he's pretty lively apparently at the moment.
His brother Nathan, was that a close call? And it went down to the wire whether he got onto the list or not. And how far away is he from maybe forcing his way into AFL? Yeah,
look, I think that's fair. I mean, he was one of the last couple taken in our list of 48. So
if his name was Nathan Smith, would he have been taken, Scott?
Oh, yeah, look, I think so. He didn't come as an uncontracted. He was living in Queensland. He was there. He's had AFL experience. He's played in a grand final and winning one at that. With a list of 48, would we look at a key 4 that's got that behind him that's on our doorstep? I'd say yes. He had to prove himself. I don't think AFL footy is unique in the fact that if you're out of elite sport for a period, it takes you a fair while to come back.
You listen to that, you're going to shrink the list. I mean, it puts some pressure on the Nathan Lablets of the world and other blokes in his situation that maybe have a year to prove themselves.
Yeah, it does, and it's a brutal game. It's all about performances, and we're asking young guys to do more and be more mature and show more leadership at their age than perhaps ever been asked at AFL level. So we're all going to learn a bit at the end of this.
Speaking of kids, Swallow, I've got $100 in the pocket, should I whack it on him now for the Rising Star, because they're telling me he's a chance for the Brownlow?
Look, I just know he's a great talent.
Who would you liken him to, Scotty, as a typical type?
Look, I just want him to play like David Swallow, because David Swallow's going to be good enough to be really, really good. Putting a name on him, he's that lovely combination of inside-outside midfielder that can win some contested footy, and then he'll carry it out. And if he gets outside, he'll kick it well enough, and he's just really tough and running. And he's so competitive. He's got all the hallmarks of being a great player. Should we be talking Brownlow medal? Around an 18-year-old. I think that's. You'd have to create history, I'm sure, but he's going to be a really good player.
Carmichael Hunt, is he ahead of where you thought he'd be? You put a lot of faith in him and a lot of subterfuge there as well when you got him, and excitement. Where's he at the moment?
He hasn't exceeded my expectations. He may have others, because he was known to us. I've seen him, I know it's 6 years prior, but we don't have to teach him how to be a professional athlete, and that's the first thing you've got to do. We bring in 17 and 18-year-old young men, and the first thing you've got to do is teach them how to act like a professional athlete and be a professional athlete, have all those habits. He's that, and I've never met a more competitive, driven man.
Had you had a crack at him before in your other life at the Bulldogs?
No, at my other life, we saw him play just a few school games at Churchy's Grammar up in Brisbane, but he'd already been contracted to the Broncos. Had him contracted as a 15-year-old, but at school he played some 4 or 5 AFL games.
And just on Gary as a captain, we thought he was a shrinking violet, but he's turned into a real social butterfly. He's been out at the Grand Prix, he's been out at the WWF, he's been doing more stuff in Melbourne than you, and you're based here. It's been great, but it's been a bit different, hasn't it?
Look, it's interesting with anyone, and you could say the same with our young players, experience an opportunity and all of a sudden they put their head up and want to, get some confidence, and perhaps that's how Gary is at the other end, where, he's thriving on the responsibility and he is the captain and leader of our football club, and I'm sure it's exciting him, and he wants to do a good job, and he certainly is.
How would Fev go on the Gold Coast? You need a power forward. You never know, next year he might be suited to the Jupiter's scene. Yeah,
look, I'm not sure that's in our plans, our model that we're rolling out. I doubt that we'd be going down that path.
And the last question: are you going to tail off towards the end because the boys get tired, or are they going to learn the game plan, get more fit and get better?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. I think, as I said, this has never been done before, so I think we'll all learn a little bit out of it. Will we dip in the middle and then come back at the end because of what you're saying? All of a sudden we've got more games, or will we get weary and drop off? It's going to be interesting to see, and it'll change along the way, I think, a fair bit.
That's it for Front and Square with Scott Clayton. Steve-O will be getting into a headlock to try and find out just when he signed Gary Ablett. We'll be bringing that to you next week as well. That's all for us at Super Footy.